It's fun. I love this sport. I gave it my all. It's fucking crazy. I had a blast, and thank you to all the fans and everyone.
Folks, it's over. Joshua knocks out Jake Paul in the 6th round of their fight on Netflix.
That would align with a ring that size, a negative style, as we mentioned. It really comes down to the fan interest. Jake Paul is on a 2-fight stretch coming into this one, which really put his reputation on the line.
Boxing veterans and professionals are weighing in on Jake Paul's future after his brutal knockout loss to Anthony Joshua. Following the fight, Jake himself hinted that once he feels he has checked every box in boxing, he could walk away from the sport entirely and shift his focus toward chasing a dream in the NFL. That statement alone has ignited serious debate about whether this fight marked the beginning of the end of his boxing run and a major turning point in his athletic journey. The boxing world did not hold
fell after this. Like legitimately just to play like safety and just deck people. No, I swear to God, I'm about to bring hella ratings to whatever team I'm on.
Where would you want to go if you can go to any team?
Shit, the Browns.
So
I can run a 4.34.
He's the fastest man on the planet.
I got hands. I have the size, the power. I can knock people out with one punch. So why can't I play free safety?
Do you think you coming into the NFL would be the equivalent of like when an NFL player says, I'm going to try to box now?
No, because I played football my whole life. At the end of the day, it's coverage, knowing your plays, and then just being fast and willing.
Back after the shocking knockout. Former user IB delivered one of the harshest reactions online, posting, "Jake Paul knocked out. His career is over. This bum is done." Former world champion Duke McKenzie also shared his analysis, pointing out the obvious size and reach disadvantage Jake faced against Anthony Joshua. McKenzie explained that even when Jake tried to throw shots, he simply couldn't get close enough to land anything meaningful. According to him, the mismatch was clear from the opening rounds, and he warned that continuing to take fights like this could be both dangerous and damaging.
To throw a shot, he would lunge in, jump in, and because he was so short, he'd miss. And then he ended up stumbling over his feet and falling over. Sometimes in that fight, it reminded me of, have you seen that Kung Fu film called The Drunken Master? Except for he wasn't a master. There's a Kung Fu guy who walks around and normally kicks people's ass, but he looks drunk all the time. That's what that fight reminded me of. It was such a poor showing from Jake Paul. You know, I mean, it's a well-documented fact. There was a lot of money on the line. And I'm sure you, Max, as I would, and anybody else in the street would fight Anthony Joshua for 75 million. You just would. And the same thing would happen. And even after the fight, now the fight's over, you're 75 million.
To Jake's credibility in boxing. Another ex-user, Chelsea, reacted emotionally to the result, expressing relief over Jake Paul's loss by posting, "I hardly come here anymore, but I'm so glad Jake Paul lost. Maybe now he'll finally shut up." Meanwhile, former UFC champion Michael Bisping offered a more technical breakdown. Bisping described the fight as a complete masterclass by Anthony Joshua, explaining how Jake had no answers for AJ's uppercuts and punch combinations. He pointed out that even when Jake tried to escape by circling and running, the damage continued to pile up. According to Bisping, the injuries to Jake's face were severe, and the fight brutally exposed.
In my humble opinion, because I'm a big Anthony Joshua fan. Of course, I've been a supporter for the longest time. A rather lackluster, unmotivated Anthony Joshua that didn't look like he was being particularly nasty, right? A lot of the time he was out of range, and okay, it is hard to land a shot on someone that's backing up and moving away the whole time. And there was a lot of times where he had him in the corner and he could have thrown a shot. And sometimes he was telegraphing his shots. And anytime he did go in to throw a punch, as I said before, Jake Paul would shoot in and turn it into a wrestling match. And even when he wasn't shooting in, he was clinching a lot. This is boxing, it's not MMA as we know. The referee should have done a much better job of getting in there and separating them much faster. As I say, it was the 6th round. I think it was the 4th round he got dropped twice. In the 5th round he got through it. In the 6th round, caught him with the jab, a glancing right hook. He goes down, and that was that. That was all she wrote, right? I did a live. There was about 9,000 people watching at one point. Nobody was particularly enjoying the matchup. Listen, okay? I respect both men. I respect anyone really that steps into the ring, okay? And certainly going up against Anthony Joshua, that was a tall task, okay? You know, metaphorically and figuratively, right? It was a tall task. It was a big job. It was a tough opponent. It was a mismatch, and it was, right? Jake Paul never worried Anthony Joshua once. He never rung his bell. He never caused any damage. He never had him worried. He never did anything. It wasn't a fight. It was a display of how long can Jake Paul last? Can he run away long enough to...
The gap between Jake and true elite level fighters, making recovery and rest absolutely necessary before any future plans. Ex-user Cabaral's Finest focused on the seriousness of the aftermath, posting, Jake Paul has gone to the hospital with a suspected broken jaw. Bro was forced into early retirement. Sean Jones also shared his thoughts, emphasizing that at least the fight was real and not scripted. Jones noted that despite breaking Jake's jaw, Anthony Joshua didn't even appear to be using his full power. He suggested the knockout could have been far worse if
those people who were fully convinced that this fight was 100% rigged. Like, people said that this is a clown show, and they said this is rigged, this is scripted. Okay, so now Joshua's won. What are you going to say to that? So was it scripted that Joshua was going to win? You see this whole narrative about, oh, the fight's rigged, the fight's scripted. That's illegal to do, and Joshua is not going to tarnish his legacy by doing something like that. Would Jake Paul do something like that? Maybe so, yeah, but not someone like Joshua. Come on. Now, to be fair, 80% of that fight was looking a little bit dodgy. It was looking like Joshua wasn't throwing as much as he usually would. Jake Paul was landing on Joshua. He landed a really strong jab that knocked Joshua's head back. He landed a couple of decent overhand rights. In fact, Jake was kind of the first one who landed the biggest shots of the fight. But this is the thing, anyone who fights, even on like a low-level basis, or who just does some sparring, will understand that when you fight someone who has got nowhere near the skill level as you, sometimes it can be a little bit harder because they're awkward, they're doing stuff that you don't really expect. You know, sometimes when you fight beginners, it's a bloody nightmare. Just like, you know, awkward movements. You're like, what are they throwing? You don't expect certain shots to come that do come. And then you fight someone who's a little bit more traditionally sound with the fundamentals, and it's almost a little bit easier. And I think that's what we've seen here in this fight. AJ has had an easier time with some fighters who've got like 40 professional fights with 20 KOs on the record than he did with Jake Paul. Why is that? Oh, because it's scripted. It's scripted. No, it's not scripted. It's just because Jake Paul is awkward and he's a beginner in relation to Joshua. So Joshua just took some time to figure them out. You could see Joshua was getting a little bit frustrated in that 4th and 5th round, but then he started.
AJ had pushed harder. While acknowledging the severity of the injury, Jones gave credit to the authenticity of the bout and stressed that this fight showed the harsh reality of stepping into the ring with a world-class heavyweight like Joshua. UserMir71 fired a blunt warning at Jake Paul after the loss, posting, "Do everyone a favor and don't return." Many hardcore boxing fans echoed that frustration. Analyst Liam Goff raised serious concerns, stating that Jake Paul is now in a very
had that face-off with Tank Davis. He was looking at a guy who was, 5-6 inches shorter than him and probably 60-70 pounds lighter, right? So he was probably looking at that thinking, yeah, you're a legit boxer, yeah, you hit very hard, but look how much bigger I am to you. Contrast that to him looking up at Anthony Joshua and realizing, oh my God, look at the size of you in comparison to me. That's a bit different. And I think with Jake Paul, it really dawned on him what's going on. But Jake Paul has to keep face. He has to stay essentially in that persona that, you know, I am the man, I'm going to win this, trying to sell a dream to a casual, a bit like what Eddie Hearn does, trying to sell the casual audience that this is going to be a real fight, quote unquote. It was a real fight. It's not scripted, but you know what I mean, that he's really in this fight. That's what he was trying to do. And he did that well up until fight night. And boy, did he fail miserably on fight night. Again, I give him credit. He doesn't need to box. He can choose an easier profession, as I say. But to go in and to run around the ring like that, that was something else entirely. I mean, he was doing his best Roadrunner impression in there. He was running around that ring. And the minute that bell went, that was all he was trying to do. And listen, AJ's performance, I can critique it from a defensive point of view, that he got hit with some silly shots that he probably shouldn't have been hit with. He was trying to cut the ring off in a ring as big as that. It's not easy, all right? And furthermore, if you're in there with an opponent who purely just wants to survive, he's no interest in winning the fight. He just wants to go the rounds. People, you could be one of the most you could be a prime Mike Tyson, Bone Crusher Smith, prime example. People never talk about that fight with Mike Tyson because they say, oh yeah, prime.
Following surgery, Jake Paul took to X to update fans on his condition, thanking his doctors while acknowledging the difficult recovery ahead. He wrote, "Just got out of surgery. Everything went smoothly. Thanks for all the love. Lots of pain and stiffness. Liquid diet for 7 days. Shout out to the amazing team at Miami University Hospital. Boxing commentator Wade later added his perspective, explaining that Jake's mindset may have come from feeling like he had already accomplished enough without the pressure of defending.